All right, welcome back to another Jam Packed. Instead of doing them 6 weeks apart like we weren't supposed to, we're doing them back to back this month, trying to get caught up on everything. Today, we don't have a ton of topics, but we have an incredibly special guest, and once again, I'm just going to let Will take over on the intro.
You got it. Our next guest is a world-renowned game designer. He shipped his first game, Palace of Deceit, when he was 15. Not one to rest on his laurels, he'd go on to work with Epic Games to create Jazz Jackrabbit. He'd later serve as designer for Unreal and Unreal Tournament. He is the creator of the innovative, groundbreaking, and award-winning game series, Gears of War. And finally, he's got a new book out where you can read all about this and more, titled Control Freak. Please welcome to the show, Cliff Dude Huge Bleszinski.
That was actually pretty good. I mean, it was no Carrie Underwood waiting all day for Sunday night, but I'll still take it.
I saw the glance up, and I'm wondering if the Dude Huge remark was okay.
No, like my email has Dude Huge in it, so it's that's one of those gags that happened a while back. For those of you that don't know, like it was an article, and I think it was Kotaku. Yeah, and the guy who wrote the article said "Dude hugs for everyone," but instead he actually accidentally said "Dude huge." And this was back when I was working out vigorously. I've been slacking I've been a sloth for the last little while, and I was actually pretty ripped at that point. So then, dude, the nom de plume, whatever you want to call it, Dude Huge, kind of stuck. So that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. And, in regards to the CliffyB's thing, by the way, that was one of those things that I made. I don't want to be called CliffyB's anymore. It was just a publicity gag, just to see how far it would go. And honestly, I'm 47 fucking years old now at this point, and so I just go by Clifford.
I think you can go by whatever. You can tell people exactly. You tell people.
I'm gonna change my name into a symbol like Prince did.
If they do it wrong, you just push them up against the wall. You know who I am.
Yeah, no. Actually, fun fact is all my closest friends. I told them years ago if I ever say that to anybody, they have free reign to kick me in the nuts.
Oh man.
I mean, you could be like
anybody who ever says, "Do you know who I am?" is a total piece of shit. So.
You could be like the wrestling stars, and you can be formerly of Epic Games, Clifford, CliffyB's, Dude Huge Bleszinski, and just make sure someone says all of those every time they say your name, or else they have to pay you or something.
It was actually funny because for Halloween, my wife went as Peacemaker, and I was Eagly, and we wound up posting a photo. We didn't even tag John Cena in it, and John Cena somehow found the post and quote tweeted it. And I was like, oh, just got John Cena tweeting me now. This is weird. You just never know who you're gonna come across.
But how did you even see it?
I don't. Well, he follows me, but he follows. Oh, yeah, exactly. So I sent a screen capture of the tweet to my in-laws. My brother-in-law edited out the John Cena part of it. He's like, "What? I don't see it." I'm like, "God damn it!" And it took me like 5 minutes to get the damn joke.
Yeah.
Well.
So.
Welcome to the show. That was a chaotic intro.
And we're off.
Yeah.
Go.
Gotta say, it's an honor having you on. I am.
Thank you.
All
Dude,
of the people.
I'm like feeling surreal here because this is giving me flashbacks of watching you on the Giant Bombcast, the E3 after show 10 years ago in that weird former porn studio.
That's exactly what I was gonna say,
dude. And I'm like, watch, because I remember staying up late to watch this. I'm like, oh man, he's gonna talk about Gears. I gotta hear his thoughts. I gotta hear what's he gonna work on next. And 10 years forward, I'm like, I'm talking to you. it's awesome.
I mean, it's a small world, man. And yeah, I was on that with John Blow actually.
Yeah,
and,
it was.
That's one of those things that one of my mantras for game developers. I always tell them is to make their games as personal as possible because Gears was about my critique of the Gulf War, thinly veiled with emulsion and things like that, and the daddy issues that I had, losing my father at 15, Rod Ferguson and Lee Perry, the Rod being the producer, Lee being my co-designer, they both lost their fathers at an early age, and there was so much in there, and I remember being in the Uber, or I don't even know if we had Uber back then, whatever SUV was driving us back to whatever after party we were going to. I was in the car with John Blow, and I talked about Braid with him, and I was like, "Is this about a girl from your personal life?" And he's like, "Maybe." And I'm I fucking knew it. So
that's awesome.
But yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. for anyone who somehow doesn't know, Cliff, as the intro said, made some of my favorite games, including, I still have a couple. We've got the OG Unreal Tournament on PS2. The one you absolutely hated working on. I had to specifically pull it out for that reason.
Thank you very much.
Despite being a PC gamer at the time, PS3 is actually where I played UT3 first. It was not a good way to play it, but it was really fascinating because it supported mouse and keyboard, which opened my eyes to a lot of weird things. And then my dad has...
Go on, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I was just going to say my dad has all of our Gears copies, but I do have the Steelbook for 2 still, so we still got that going on.
Nice. I actually didn't work that much in UT3, and it turned out decent, but I was so, you know, balls deep, for lack of a better term, in Gears at the time that I was just like, you know, let's, I'll play test it. You know, Steve Polge spearheaded that one, and again, it was a solid game, but it wasn't necessarily the game that I wanted to make in regards to the art style and some of the design decisions. But you know, it is what it is. You know, one of my biggest pet peeves about the Unreal Tournament franchise when I wasn't working on it was the sense of scale got totally hosed. When you have characters that are in environments that are seem so large and the character seems so small, it totally throws you off. And that's that delicate balance between finding the scale that the level designers implement in their environment, the speed of the character movement, the field of view, the size of the player models, and things like that. It really is a delicate balance, and that's one of those things. UT3 kind of started that trend where things kind of started to slide, and then, you know, God bless Epic. You know, I'm actually going to a hockey game with Mark Rain tonight from Epic. His treat, of course, and the thing is when they Epic
trying to pull you back in.
Yeah. I'm not going to sit at a table I can't walk away from ever again. I'll leave it at that. Epic did the revival of UT3, which looked amazing, but the scale was totally off. So it's really one of those things that's really hard to nail. The little subtle je ne sais quoi of what separates good from great. But yeah, so anyway, I'm still noodling on new stuff. So there's that.
Have you played anything recently that did kind of hit all of those points or came close to hitting all those points as far as getting the scale right?
A little bit of a history, right? So when the weather is warm out, I get in book mode, right? Like, you know, and it literally says this in the back of my phone, right? So I love like sitting on a patio with the missus. She has 2 phones playing fucking Pokemon Go, doing this. I'm like, this counts as gameplay. Like, she's like, it's raid hour. I'm like, okay. And then she literally has the 2 phones and her Switch to the side, right? And so when the weather's nice, I'm not playing anything. But about a couple of years ago, my mother-in-law, when COVID hit, she was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer that had metastasized. She never smoked a day in her life, right? Wonderful woman. And the shit got real when she turned to me in her living room and said, well, I guess I need to figure out if I'm going to be cremated or get buried now. And I was like, wow, this really is a death sentence. And the thing is, you know, during that time period, my Switch was my soul, was my guide. You know, because there's just, you know, the raw truth of the matter is just we were in Mandeville, Louisiana, just waiting for her to pass so that she could be surrounded by her family. And it wasn't pretty, I'll tell you that. In the movies, people die of cancer and they just go like that. Now, humans struggle up until the last second. That really fucked me up for a bit. But the thing is, you know, I was playing Shovel Knight, I was playing Celeste. Like, I love retro platformers these days. Celeste is chef's kiss. It is one of the best platformers ever made. And you know, my wife was watching me play it, and she doesn't like those kind of hardcore platformers, and I live on them, like Super Meat Boy and things like that, right? And you know, she watches me and she sees me like narrowly dodge a blade or a bad guy or whatnot, and she's just like cringing the entire time. And I'm like, no, I got this. And you know, a good hard platformer like that, you know, will give you the chance to boom restart, boom restart, boom restart. And the definition of insanity, as we know, is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result.
So what you're saying is you put a lot of hours into Mario Maker and all of the impossible levels that were made for those 2 games.
All right, I have thoughts about Mario Maker, right? It is a troll platform. Like I don't follow a lot of YouTubers, but one of the ones that I fucking love is Donkey. I think Donkey, he's got that Donkey voice, right? And he's just fucking hilarious. His comedic timing, his edits, his opinions on things. And you know, when he there's a whole series of videos where he decided he wanted to take on these troll Mario Maker levels that are just they're just not good game design. They're just terrible. Like just see if you can get through this kind of hell, right? And he actually wound up passing them in. Like at the end, the completion percentage is like 1%, right? Like, you know, like very, very few people can actually do it. But I got the first Mario Maker, and then I actually quit it because I realized that they had gate kept so many of the other options. Like you couldn't get like Lakitu or the Hammer Brothers until you did ABC XYZ, and I'm like, just give me the fucking tool set, guys. Like, you know, this is not my first rodeo. I made Jazz fucking Jackrabbit. I think I can figure this out, and I would have actually possibly made some pretty cool, interesting levels, but you know, somebody made the boneheaded design decision to put it behind some sort of weird. At least it wasn't a paywall, I'll tell you that. But
do you think that, like, trying to figure out how to word it. Do you think they needed to do that to give people a game, or do you think they should have just been like, here's basically our own version of RPG Maker, but for Mario games, and just left it at that?
I think they should have done the latter, honestly. I think they should have just, you know, here's all the tools, you know, have fun with it. And then, you know, if there's a need for further monetization, create maybe a separate sub-store where people could, you know, or users could, I don't even know if they did, people could like monetize their levels. You know, put your level out on the eShop or whatever, and, you know, charge, you know, $5 for it, or $3 or something, just a nominal fee, you know, and then, you know, let the good stuff rise and the bad stuff sink, put a rating system in there. And, you know, I don't know, you know, it's, you know, I'm totally armchair quarterbacking right now.
Yeah, that would be very un-Nintendo like to allow people to make money off of their own thing, but that would be so cool. It would elevate like future level designers to a certain degree. Like,
well, I mean, if you remember back in the day with the Unreal Tournament games, you know, I had my own website called CliffyB's Ownage, right? And I would find the best user levels and I would highlight them. And it's actually a true fact that like a lot of the people that I highlighted on that website got their start in the video game industry as a result of that. And, you know, working at, you know, Treyarch and working on Call of Duty, working on various, you know, first-person shooters and even third-person shooters. You know, the people out there, you know, Tim Sweeney knew to make tools that could facilitate creativity for people who aren't necessarily adept at C++. And then, you know, put all the tools out there, and then, you know, you wind up with, you know, the ecosystem of the Unreal Engine growing. You wind up with more licensees, you know, step 3 profit, you know, and as a result, you know, Tim, I'm pretty sure, is like the richest guy in North Carolina now. And, you know, the thing is, you know, when it comes to money, you know, I'm comfortable, you know, I'm not like a billionaire or anything like that. But the thing is, you know, I had to remind myself that if I had stuck it out at Epic with Fortnite exploding and becoming the thing that it is, you know, I'd be exponentially more successful. But at some point, you got to be like, enough is enough. You know, I have my restaurants, I have Broadway shows and things like that. And, you know, once you realize, you know, yes, I can go out for prime rib once a week and or sushi and travel, you know, a fair amount. It's like I have a plaque downstairs that says comparison is the thief of joy. There's always going to be somebody better or worse looking than you. There's always going to be somebody in better or worse shape than you, somebody with more or less followers than you, somebody with more or less money. At some point, just, you know, have to be comfortable. And the final, you know, spoiler, the final phrase in the book is, you know, Lauren turning to me, pinching my butt at a Comic-Con party and saying, just be you. And that's, I feel like at 47 years old, I'm finally comfortable in my skin.
Hey, fucking A, man.
Yeah, for real.
I feel like this is like a therapy session. Tell me about your mother. Tell me about your mother.
That's basically how these go.
I would like to know how you were when you were younger. Tell me about when you were.
You can find all of that out in his book, which is
show me on the doll where he touched you, which I do actually cover in the book because I was molested when I was 15 by a guy I met on the internet. So that's the thing about the book, guys. And you know, hang on, plug.
Yeah,
Control Freak, out now.
I have a link in the description on YouTube if you're watching there. Pick it up.
There have been books written about the video game industry, like Jason Schreier, for example, wrote you know, Press for Set, Blood, Sweat, and Pixels, which are 2 great books. But the other majority of these books, they read like stereo instructions, right? Because they're written through a veil, a wall of PR people and publicists, right? And for me, you know, not really having a person like that, apart from my rep Brianna at Simon & Schuster, who's been wonderful, I put it all out there. You know, I not only talk about the creation of, you know, the shareware games I worked on in the 90s, you know, from Dare to Dream and Palace of Deceit to Jazz Jackrabbit, you know, the creation of Unreal Tournament, and again, shipping Unreal Tournament PlayStation 2, which was hell. And then the Gears of War franchise, you know, working a bit on Fortnite, and then, you know, Lawbreakers and Radical Heights, you know, with my own studio that ultimately created and broke me for a year. But I also talk about, you know, the affair that led to the fall of my first marriage, right? I talk about, you know, the fact that I was a serial cheater in my prior relationships. You know, I talk about, you know, when Lauren, you know, as the kids say, enters the chat, and I was like, holy crap, you're my forever person. And then, you know, talking about my father's death, the molestation, talking about how Boss Key crumbling just broke me, talking about having to put my dog down, you know, all these things that are deeply, deeply personal. And to be honest, it's pretty fucking terrifying to put all that out there like that. But I believe that, you know, it makes the book a better read, because my goal with the book wasn't just to have a book about the video game industry. Yes, of course, that's the main like plot, the main through line in it, but it's also a human story. You know, like you may not like baseball, but you can appreciate what Billy Beane did with the Oakland A's in Moneyball. You know, played by Brad. Imagine like Brad Pitt play you, by the way. You know, you might not like, you know, Facebook, but, you know, watching the movie The Social Network and how it was built is really compelling. So that was my goal, was to have a human story amidst all of the bits and bytes and, you know, gaming stuff, because making video games isn't sexy. You're sitting behind a monitor, like clamoring on a keyboard for, you know, 10 plus hours a day, you know, and I was lucky that I was the one who was able to be the face of the company. So, you know, I was bleary eyed and tired from late nights and lots of Mountain Dew. You know, then the next day having to be on camera and having to be the face of the company. You know, I was pulling double duty for years, and now I'm happy to just be doing my own damn thing.
Yeah, man. I mean, like most.
And thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
It's just like most of what you described. Like you, the game developer, you were very public, like through all of it, but it was about, you know, you developing those games, your relationship with the games, the history, or the people that are playing them and all that. You didn't get a lot of what you just described in this. Like, you don't get any of the person. You just got you, the developer. And if I wanted to know about that, I could have just hit up your Wikipedia. But all that stuff is in here. And
well, if you go to my Wikipedia, some 4chan troll decided to take a photo of me and modified it slightly so I look really, really chubby. And they made basically made me look like Steve Bannon. Like, they put like, you know, like sores on my face and shit. And it's just like come on, man. Like, it's like the worst photo of me ever.
Is this like the fat Ben Affleck memes, but for you? Like,
yeah,
is this like a milestone? Are you supposed to achieve this like status?
I don't know, man. I mean, maybe I was a little chubby back then, you know, like you know, I was never chubbier than when I was drinking beer.
Yeah.
And the irony is I co-own the Raleigh Beer Garden that has over 400 beers on tap, and I don't drink beer. So, but you know, I was never chubbier than when I was pounding Bud Light watching Saints games. So
one of the
Bud Light's the worst. You basically like can drink like 8,000 of them, and then you pee out your buzz, and then you just maintain all the carbs. So it's just people are like, but it's a light beer. I'm like, no, it's just piss.
Yeah. One of the things that really stuck out to me as you were describing of it wasn't the, like, there was no, I mean, there were blips of it, but there was no Social Network or Silicon Valley montage of you like hacking away at the keyboard and then you have the like Sherlockian house moment where you find the answer or whatever. It was very much, this is what, you know, the life of someone in this position looks, and it almost reads, instead of reading as the instruction manual as you described, it almost read as the like my childhood dream of almost what I imagined doing what you did in that position would look like. Obviously there's a lot of the trauma, the downsides, but like the idea of you just wanted to see your cool ideas in the world and you found a way to make it work, and here's these sacrifices, the things you had to do along the way to make it happen. And it almost like it's almost one of those music biopics where it's like, here's all the partying and then the realization wake up moment or whatever, but told in a way more like sincere way, because, you know, the Queen didn't specifically come up with we will rock you in the middle of like their deepest, darkest like drinking binge. You know, it wasn't that cinematic moment, but it has so much more sincerity to it, and it's really, it feels more accessible in a weird way. Like, this is, and I have other thoughts about it, but like a lot of this culture that you established with Tim and Mark, you can't really get today, even with online video stuff, because of how prevalent it already is. But the fact that it was just like, you were just a dude. You weren't like a rock star that just walked in and been like, I'm gonna make your favorite game right now. Bam, there's your game. It was like, I was just a hungry young man.
Yeah, you know, and it came out of, you know, being acne riddled when I was 15. You know, I was on Accutane, and I still have to use chapstick vigorously on a regular basis because it fucked up my endocrine system permanently. And then the thing is, I got into video games for 3 reasons. The first one was I wanted to make great games. The second was I wanted to be somewhat famous for it. The third one was I wanted to make money.
Right.
And I remember reading, the id Software articles in Wired magazine, photos of like, Carmack and Romero with their Ferraris. And, I'm vigorously listening to Ice-T as I was working on my games. And, he had that line in, I think it was New Jack Hustler, where he's like, I had nothing and I wanted it. You had everything and you flaunted it. And I was like, I was willing to work the hours. I was willing to just crush it and lose sleep and sacrifice my first major relationship. I mean, I married the first girl that I slept with, which is a classic game developer mistake. And then years later, when I moved out into downtown Raleigh and lived in a condo in the Party District and had a Lamborghini, that changed a little bit. I did my share of shenanigans, which the first draft of the book was full on Tucker Max, by the way. Maybe if the first book does well, maybe there'll be a second, and I'll give more of those juicy, disgusting details. But the thing is my parental abandonment was a crucial factor in forging my career. My father's death, my mother moving us to Southern California. Once my mother found a new husband, who's a great guy. He died of pancreatic cancer a few years ago. His name was Prince, and he was awesome. And but my mom was just like flipped a bit. She went from being a loving, caring mother to like, okay, fuck you kids. I'll be over here doing God knows what. You just do whatever and go to school. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, okay. I had that first girl the one that I married, my first girlfriend. I wanted to have a place we could fool around in. So I crushed it and worked on Jazz Jacker, but I hated going to fucking college. Like I knew exactly. I could my spidey sense could tell me I know exactly where this is going to go in regards to the student loan situation. I still have friends in their 30s who have 6 figures of debt of that bullshit. I hope Biden is able to continue to do something about that. It's such predatory lending. And then Jazz hit, and I started making enough money that I bought my first car in 1991 Saturn. It was red. Ooh, so cool. I got my first apartment, and I cranked that air conditioning. I hoarded it like a runaway. Because, when I was living in Laverne, California, which is like the valley's valley, my mother wouldn't run the air conditioning ever. She's like, just open a window. I'm like, Ma, it's like a fucking oven in here, And so then, I was able to kind of, live my life and, hang, spaceships from, Independence Day on my ceiling and things like that. And, just continue to work. And then eventually got, an early version of the Unreal Editor and started, putting textures in there and started making, screenshots to help promote it. I was there, at ground zero. Unreal Engine now it's on iteration 5, and Unreal Engine powers like many games these days. And Epic is continuing to essentially take over the world, for lack of a better term.
Not just games. I mean, Adam uses, I don't know if he's using it yet, but he's experimenting with some background replacement stuff just to create like virtual backgrounds for.
You've seen the stuff that Jon Favreau was doing with the Mandalorian.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
It was
like the whole, like, initially I was looking into it because I needed album art for my music, and I was like, all right, well, why don't I just load up Unreal and see what I can put together with that, and that snowballed into now Adam is looking into backgrounds for his show.
What kind of music do you do? Are you in a band or?
Well, this isn't shilling for me because I've done plenty of that. But since you asked, backingtrack.gg, it's all royalty free rock and heavy metal. It's for content creators. It's for YouTubers, streamers, etc. Yeah, I identified a niche there.
Oh, dude, that's one of those things. My wife has started actively Twitch streaming these days. Twitch TV, Elite Lauren, L337 Lauren, and
I was watching you the other day. You were messing with her on stream.
Well, we have this running gag, right? My wife fucking hates Pringles. And so she has those little bits that you can get, and then you can like click and make her do something like hydrate or show us your dogs or summon Cliff. And one of the ones is eat a Pringle. And it just, I quote, Hellraiser with Pinhead, such sweet suffering, right?
You have opened the box.
Exactly. And she, it just is, I love, she gets this scrunchy little look at her face. And
you can't stop. Sorry.
I'm not. I don't even think it's actual potato. I think it's just like recycled, like particle board or some shit. And so she has the green screen, so I'll put in the green glove and like take the Pringle can and float it in front of her face like a ghost is, and then I'll bump her on the head slightly with it. But yeah, so the thing about that is like, you know, I don't like using headphones that much. I'll do it for these kinds of events and things like that. But when I'm sitting at my computer, I'll just fire up Spotify and use my speakers, right? And I made the mistake one time of playing some music in the background that wasn't licensed or allowed on YouTube or Twitch. And the algorithm, you know, the fired the DMCA against her, you know, when she tried to post it. Like, it's just basically muted that entire section. Yep. You know, because I mean, you know, these musicians work hard in their work. They deserve to get paid rightfully. But as you basically pointed out, you know, there's a cottage industry of people that make kind of cool background music, because sometimes, you know, if you're not playing a game or you're just chatting, and, you know, because she does like her craft streams, you know, having a little bit of background music, you know, just kind of, it kills, you know, it helps, not kills, but it helps the vibe in the room. But that's cool. But I thought you were going to get, I didn't know if you wound up doing vocals, because we can go down the karaoke rabbit hole if you want to.
Oh, I can do vocals. I figured, when I was designing some of this stuff, it was like, with vocals it worked okay, without it worked better, because it was just distracting, like especially
especially if you're talking head.
So it was like, all right, I'll cut this stuff out, and maybe later down the line we'll release a vocals version of this stuff. No, that's
smart. I just fucking love karaoke. I think I'm trying to commit to posting I co-own, again, like I said, I co-own the Raleigh Beer Garden, and every Monday night at 8 o'clock we do karaoke nights, right? There's a guy.
This has become my tradition of checking your Twitter feed to see what you sang on karaoke night.
Did you see Turtle Power?
I did.
TURTLE Power.
I'm hoping that there's going to be more videos of this. In fact, you should go full Cat's Meow and just have like a webcam just streaming karaoke.
Dude, you know that's my jam when I go to New Orleans, right?
Oh yeah, you told me. That's one of my favorite things. Like, not to go on a tangent here, but one of my favorite things about your Twitter presence is you reply to people. You're not just screaming into the void.
I mean,
or not just interacting with other people on your level. Like, a lot of the people, and I'm not even going to specify anyone, but so many people are like, yes, I love it on Twitter. I love interacting with the community. And the only people replying to each other are other famous, like, actors, voice actors, brands, whatever. And it's just like, yeah, okay.
I mean, dude, every time, so I have the best kind of fame, right? Like, I only get recognized once every week or two, right, in public. And the thing is it's not like, you know, like Brad Pitt going to buy, you know, broccoli at the store getting harassed, right? So it's like, it's chill. And well, the thing, he's like, just the first rule of broccoli is you don't talk about broccoli.
That's right.
And the thing is you know, and for me being for lack of a better phrase, a big fish in a small pond, being somebody in Raleigh who's done something interesting, right? You know, like from the video games to the restaurants and the Broadway producing, and now, you know, the memoir and working on a comic book and everything. You know, it's like, I love going to stand-up shows, and like, I love it when I'm in the front row and they're like, what do you do? And I'm like, how long you got? Right? Like, and read about it in the 305-page memoir. And it's one of those things, for some reason, and I do like replying to your average person if they're not a dick, right? For some reason, like a ton of stand-up comedians follow me on Twitter. I mean, I'm kind of funny occasionally. That's one of my goals, is eventually to, you know, do open mic night and see if I can actually pull it off, because I love stand-up. I love the art form of it all. I love, you know, a good callback and things like that. You know, like Patton Oswalt follows me, and like he came to town and I was like DMing him like, great set. He's like, thanks, man. I'm like, Jesus Christ. But you know, when you reply to your
a fan.
Well, I mean, he's a nerd, you know.
Yeah.
You know, Doug Stanhope follows me, and he came to town. We saw him at the Improv, and next thing I know, we're in his green room drinking his vodka, getting shithoused with him and Bingo, his wife. And I'm telling him the story about our girlfriend of ours, whose boyfriend is a tattoo artist, and he has a tattoo on his dick of Lego Batman that he did himself.
Oh my God!
Now,
I can't even imagine that. like,
I have questions.
Yeah.
How?
Yeah.
How?
It's
so steady. Like, that's.
And apparently you do have to be somewhat aroused during it.
Well, yeah, but like.
So then I almost never go out without my wife, and this is my favorite story to tell, and you guys are getting the short version of it. But you know, when Lauren and this girl get together, see, I'm 47. When I was coming up in my 20s, there was no such thing as the beautiful nerd. In the 90s, Pokemon and all this 90s generation changed it. you know, my wife and I have 12 years of difference between us. And her friend is a very similar age. And, you know, there's just these awesome, beautiful nerds. You look at these awesome, smart, beautiful cosplayers like Jess Negri and Stella Chu and Natasha and whatnot. And they're like, now they're around. And I'm like, where were you guys? I'm like, oh yeah, they were young. So but you get Lauren and this girl together and it's just like, look at my Pokemon. I'm just like, oh, for fuck's sake. And so what happens is I go out, you know, I like to drink, but I don't drink and drive. So I have a car service. I call them like, White Horse, get me the fuck out of here. So I go to a dive bar with one of my best friends, Damon. He works for Justin Roiland Studio Squanch Games, right? And very, very talented guy, but he's the definition of work hard, play hard. You know, when he gets his stuff done, but when he goes out, he goes out. And he has what I call his Demontourage, where he always has like people around him because he's just a lovable dude, right? Never seen him in a bad mood. And he rolls up with this girl named Courtney, who's a local tattoo artist, right? And she's got the piercings and the ink and everything like that. And I tell her the Lego Batman story. And she's like, that's not that crazy. I have a tattoo of a beaver on my beaver. Do you want to see it? Like, and I'm like, I'm out without my wife right now. I don't necessarily need to see your labias and flabias and everything. And she's like, oh, it's on the pubic bone. It's okay. And I'm like, okay. So without batting an eyelash, this girl drops trow in the middle of Slim's in downtown Raleigh. And there it is. A beaver doing that.
Great.
And it was freshly shorn. It was freshly shorn, mind you. Like it was she bicked that motherfucker. And so then I come home and Lauren's like, how was your night? I'm like, I saw a beaver. And she's like, you go out without me for one night. And you have a girl
that she didn't get to see it.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get there. She's like, a girl flashes you her hoo-ha. And I'm like, why? Well, I don't know, you know, maybe I still got it. And so about a week and a half later, we're out with Demond at my beer garden, and we're at the liquor bar again because I don't drink beer, and it's called Spiritual. That's my contribution to the place besides working on the logo with Niall Hanley, and basically, Demond rolls up with this Courtney girl, and I'm like, Lauren, that's her. Lauren's had a couple at this point. She goes up to Courtney, and she's like, you're the beaver girl, and then Courtney just like turns on battle mode, right? She's like, who the fuck told you? And Lauren's like, oh, my husband Cliff over there in Demond. She's like, oh, I love those guys. Do you want to see it?
Oh my god.
And in the middle of my beer garden, without batting an eyelash, she drops trow, shows Lauren the beaver, and Lauren, quoting Leslie Nielsen from The Naked Gun, goes, nice beaver.
Oh god.
And then the final part of the story is a friend of mine who used to be one of my office assistant at Boss Key. She was watching my house because our dog had this weird cough, even though she's up to date on Bordetella and everything. And we get back from Dallas seeing Avril Lavigne, and we're hanging out with her for a little bit. And I tell her the beaver story, and she goes, that's not that weird. I have a tattoo of a pussy on my pussy. And I'm like, no, I don't really need to see that. So it was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
Oh my god!
I don't know. Sorry, you gave me the segue to tell that story, but it's like my favorite story. But yeah, Twitter. So the thing about Twitter.
Speaking of which, Twitter.
So yeah,
because so many fucking layers.
We were just talking about Twitter. There's layers of inner labia, outer labia, the whole 9 yards. So
and more recently, there's a butthole.
I haven't had any trolls in a while, right? And so I did a book signing. Again.
Everybody, hold up your copy now.
Audiobooks on Audible, by the way. And my friend Jordan, he's an audio video nerd, and he's looking to build his portfolio. So we did a signing at Quail Ridge Books at North Hills in Raleigh the other night. Standing room only. We sold out all the books. I was like, holy shit, you guys might really like me. And it was such a weird collection of friends from Raleigh, friends that I've known for like 20 years, and friends that I've made the last few years, some of my karaoke crew, fans and things like that. And it was one of those things that there's not a lot of authors in Raleigh. The only other one that I know of is like David Sedaris, right? Again, he's a great author. We Talk Pretty One Day is a great book. But then for a local Raleigh person to have a book signing and things like that, it was big news, right? And so I put on, my $3,000 Armani suit, and he got this photo of me, and I still look relatively young, I'd like to believe, because I moisturize. And the thing is some troll was like, oh, look at you in the, you look like you're swimming in that suit or some shit like that. And I'm like, dude, this is a tailor custom fit expensive Armani suit, motherfucker. Like, you want to see a bad suit, turn on your local news, and you know, you get some guys in some shitty Brook Brothers suit, and like once you get a good suit that fits, like it's like, you know, wearing a glove. It feels amazing. And this is not a conversation I thought I'd be having today.
That means we're doing something right?
Yeah. I mean, I think honestly, when you go back to the comedian thing on Twitter, I think it's because I did Rogan 3 times, and Joe follows me, and you know, Joe cashed out. You know, he got fuck you money, and the thing is he's had some, you know, he's been trying to do that whole play both sides kind of vibe, and I'm like, dude, he's had some pretty dubious people on his show as of late, because he's not a dumb dude. You know, he's a great stand-up comedian. He knows, you know, eyeballs at any cost. That's the way the world works. You know, and that's the thing you want to, you know, getting into politics a tiny bit. You know, you look at people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert. You know, they will say any fucking thing to get a rise out of the internet because we know who they are now. And when it comes to, you know, the midterm elections, people, you know, they're like, I know that name. I saw that on social media, right? That's how your average person works. And the fun fact is, you know, since we have the midterms coming up in, God, I think less like a week or so, they're in Raleigh, North Carolina. I don't know how it is where you guys are. They put these tacky ass, you know, like vote for me signs out, you know, like so and so, right? Vote for so and so, and they're yeah, exactly. But they're fucking everywhere. So I got annoyed by them. So about 4 years ago, during the last midterms, my wife and I made fake election signs. One of them had little stars on it and said these signs are dumb, and the other one said elect butts, a toot and good time. And we hired my car service, got him a mimosa, and just went all around town, just canvassed the area with him, right? And it wound up making the local news. It wound up making WRAL, ABC 11, the News and Observer. And they interviewed the various people about, like, what do you think of this? And they asked this one Southern lady. It's like, is that person named Butts? That's a common name in Harnett County. So right now, as I say this, all around Raleigh, there's the sequel where the signs say these signs are still dumb, and the other one says re-elect Butts, even though Butts was never elected, and it has quotes and it says a common name in Harnett County. And then I did elect Colonel Angus. You guys, did you ever see that SNL skit?
Colonel Angus. That sounds very.
It was with Christopher Walken. It's this antebellum South plantation, right? And basically, I can't remember. Maya Rudolph was in it. I can't remember the other actresses, but basically, is that him coming over the horizon? Is that the Colonel? Yes, it's Colonel Angus. And then you realize where the gag's going, and like, we haven't seen Colonel Angus around here in a long time. And then he shows up. He's like, yes, I just came back from the fight at Big Beaver, and you know, Colonel Angus likes it in the warm South. He likes it where it's hot and it's moist. And if Colonel Angus overstays his welcome, just tap me on the head. So, because again, the joke is he's basically saying,
I myself never much cared for Colonel Angus.
Exactly.
Rubs me the wrong way. Not sure why. Can't put my finger on it.
It's good to see your shining face, Colonel Angus. That's one of my favorite skits of all time. I love those kinds of jokes that, like, you know, like if kids are watching it, it's like phoom, right over their head, right? And it's like there's like a old comedy movie where there's a character named Pap Schmear, and I remember sitting in the theater as a kid and all the women were laughing. I'm like, I don't get it. But anyway, it says elect Colonel Angus, and it says, quote, just tap him on the head. And so with this car service, it's got to be one of those things that they have to get such a kick out of us, because like we just do all sorts of crazy shit with them, and like we get these drivers that are such fucking characters. And you know, I'm working on multiple other new things. You know, I don't know if you've seen the dog project that I've teased on social media.
Yeah, I've seen it a couple of times. I'm still waiting for you to give more info on that. I don't know what.
I'm working with Alex DeCampi. She's a fantastic writer. She did a book called Maddie for Duncan Jones. He did Source Code, Moon, and the World of Warcraft film. And he's David Bowie's son, also, fun fact. And he and I, it gets the other thing is a lot of directors follow me on Twitter. I got Mike Flanagan followed me. And he did like Oculus. He did the Haunting of Hill House, the Haunting of Blythe Manor, Midnight Mass. Midnight Mass is one of the best miniseries ever fucking made. Everybody should watch it. Friends with Raul, who plays the sheriff on that show. you know, I'm a big drama nerd. You know, I was you know, Mercutio and Romeo and Juliet in high school. I was Lenny in Neil Simon's Rumors. I was the lead in 10 Little Indians. You know, I clearly have no problem being in front of a crowd. And for me, like, you know, like I love a good monologue. You know, I'm currently working on learning the Alec Baldwin Malice speech, you know, where he's talking about, you ask me if I have a God complex. Let me tell you something. I am God, right? I have an MD from Harvard, right? Like that whole shtick, right? You know, you go read your Bible, Dennis, right? The way he just spits vitriol in that monologue. And the same thing with, you know, you can say what you want about, you know, Kevin Spacey has some great monologues too, but, you know, Alec Baldwin in the movie based on the David Mamet stage play, Glengarry Glen Ross, where he's like, put the coffee down. Coffee's for closers. You know what it takes to sell real estate? Brass balls, right? It's like, it's just like those monologues. I just fucking love them. And Midnight Mass is filled with that.
Always be closing.
Yep. ABC. That's the thing, you know, about in about a month, we're going to make the next announcement for what I'm co-producing on Broadway. Because for those of you that don't know, I co-produced a musical called Hadestown, the classic Greek myth of Orpheus, Eurydice, Hades, and Persephone, told by way of kind of this jazzy, folky New Orleans vibe, right? And, you know, get Hermes in there as the narrator and things like that. And after my studio boss key cratered, I was pretty broken. And then, you know, of all people, I don't know if you guys are familiar with D.R. Van Hansen. It's one of my favorite shows. I'm going to go see it locally on Sunday. There's a character in that kills himself. He's kind of this Holden Caulfield kind of misanthrope. And the actor that played him on Broadway for a while, Alex Boinello, he's a fan of my video game work. And he slid into my DMs and he's like, hey, TBD Productions is looking for some fresh blood on the producing scene on Broadway. Would you be interested in this? And I listened to the early recordings of Hadestown. It's incredibly catchy. And I was like, yes, I'm in, you know, sign me up. Next thing I know, I'm sitting there at Radio City Music Hall in Manhattan, and it's winning 8 Tonys, including best musical. And for me, that was my Phoenix redemption story, you know? And so for me, you know, as much as I love video games and I'm still doing some consulting, it's one of those things that, you know, I don't want to be CEO ever again. And my new addiction these days is learning other industries, you know, learning the restaurant business, learning Broadway, learning the publishing business of books. You know, did you know that, like, when it comes to books, like this little symbol right here is like a big deal, right? Like, you know, learning that, you know, like if you're going to quote a song in your book, you can't use more than 3 lines without securing the rights. Like, there's just so many little things that go into it. Like with the woman that I had the affair with that led to the fall of my first marriage, like, my editors like, describe her more. I'm like, no, I had to change her name and she's actually still married. And it's like, you know, if you know somebody who's like, you know, LGBTQ, it's not your job to out them. Like if she got her shit together and she's happy, you know, good for her. But, you know, she's a crucial part of my story. And they're like, describe her more. I'm like, no. Yeah. And then legal's like, no, don't describe her more. And I'm like, okay. So, you know, it's pretty vague about that. But it's one of those things that learning these industries, you know, like I'm, you know, slowly but surely working on a film project as well. I'm not going to go into too much detail on that one, but I do have multiple irons in the fire. The thing is, you know, a couple of years ago, I got this tattoo on my left arm. I don't know if you can see it. It's from my favorite children's book, Harold and the Purple Crayon. Because, you know, for me, that book is about teaching kids that you can imagine things and you can create them and you can essentially just will them into existence. And, you know, Harold takes the crayon, he draws, you know, a dragon, he draws a night sky, he draws all these sorts of things. And, you know, I don't want kids because they're little parasitic sociopaths. You know, I love the term crotch goblins. And they, you know, when my nieces and nephews visit, though, I love, you know, reading, you know, Shel Silverstein to them and, you know, Harold and the Purple Crayon and things like that. And it's one of those things. Dog, shut the fuck up. Jesus. I don't even know what the fuck my wife's doing at this point. Anyway, so the whole thing is, you know, I got this tattoo on my left arm because I'm a lefty to remind me to create. And if I don't create, then, you know, I'm a shark. I need to type up a description of a character or a setting or a plot and then send it over to another creative. And then to get something back in my inbox, I'll be sitting at, you know, at dinner or at the pub with my wife. I'm like, oh my God, I got, you know, look at this new concept art. Holy crap. And I'm like, you know, then I show it to my friends who work at Squanch, you know, the artists, you know, Demond I mentioned earlier, and then Mikey Spano, who are both tremendously talented. They have that new game, High on Life, that's dropping soon. And I couldn't. I was supposed to be in a playtest for it recently, but I couldn't because I had too much book stuff going on. Shut the fuck up! They're minerals, Marie.
Who wants to be on the show?
Yeah,
I think
she was already on the fucking show. Come here, shithead. Come here. Come on up. All right, there we go.
There you go.
That's Evie. She's my old lady. But yeah, you know, going back to the book and the studio and everything, you know, that was, you know, one of the hardest years of my life was, you know, closing that studio. And, you know, there's this myth that, like, wound up online when they were saying, you know, I didn't pay my employees. And I'm like, they got 2 weeks of leave pay and they got 2 months of healthcare, dude. Like, we deliberately budgeted and allocated for that. Like, I don't know where the fuck this shit came from. But to stand in front of these people that they were my employees, but I considered them my friends, you know.
Right.
Every Friday, you know, a bunch of us would go to a place called Gringo A Go-Go in downtown Raleigh. We'd walk, you know, we get tacos and have like, you know, maybe a pint or so, and then come back and, you know, I'd do a speech in front of the company. And, you know, there's this one badass game designer named Renee Blair. She works at Gorilla. She just shipped the new Horizon, and she's just, you know, on the up and up. And I remember one time we were at lunch with her, and she did the mezcal shot, and she ate the fucking worm. And I was like, "You're a straight shooter for upper management, Renee."
Oh,
and
man.
And that's one of the issues that comes up in the book. We just did I have the dog hair in my nose right now. God damn it. We did CBS Saturday mornings recently, right? They came to the house. They filmed us for like 6 fucking hours. And the guy was asking, you know, the hard hitting questions. You know, the whole like, you know, do you think violent video games cause violence in the real world? You know, we have all these mass shootings in America.
Come on, like, guy that made the game with the chainsaw gun. Do you believe this? Come on.
And I'm like, dude, I've been asked this question for 30 fucking years, right? Like, you know, 40 million people play Call of Duty every year. Like, and you know,
it's a ghost town.
Give me your thoughts on Mortal Kombat. Come on, let me hear it.
Thanks, Senator Lieberman. So it's one of those things that, you know, correlation does not equal causation. You know, the idea that, you know, more violent crime happens in the summer and more ice cream is sold in the summer. Therefore, ice cream causes crime. It's like, wait, what? And I think, you know, when you look at, you know, the mass shooting phenomenon, which is majority American phenomenon. Yeah, there's ones once in a blue moon in other countries, but again, mostly 95% American. And the thing is, you know, I believe it's a combination of easy access to guns, irresponsible gun owners as well. You know, parents like not leaving this stuff locked up. It's loneliness. It's the internet, mental illness, and you know, 4chan. So,
4chan even a thing anymore? Is it still a thing?
Yeah,
dude, I don't know, man. There will always be
like blessed that I feel like it's gone away.
there will always be anonymous corners of the internet that
true.
People congregate on in bad echo chambers, and you know, you have to be pretty mentally fucked in the head to say, I'm going to go to a school and I'm going to shoot little kids and then kill myself, or I'm going to surrender and just then be in prison for the rest of my life. Like, yeah, I hope it was worth it, you fucking idiot. Like, Jesus Christ. That's the world in which you live. And I like guns. I made a bazillion shooters. You know, I've fired, you know, I prefer like a Glock when I'm on the shooting range. You know, I've fired fully automatic weapons. I've gone skeet shooting, the whole 9 yards, but you know, I'm not going to, you know, stockpile 5,000 guns in case the revolution happens or some shit like that, right?
That's what the chainsaws are for, obviously.
I mean, that's the thing is, you know, it's not like I made the game Postal, you know, even though I did get to beat Gary Coleman before he died. So he was nice. But yeah, I could pontificate about that stuff all the time. But going back to the whole like women in gaming thing, you know, going back to Renee Blair being a badass game designer. And the fact is, you know, CBS Saturday mornings, you know, they interviewed my wife. She worked at id Software for a while. She was a QA tester. She created a build system for the builds of the games. You know, she was like testing Doom on iPhone, like with John Carmack. And she like didn't even know like what a legend John Carmack was at the time. She knew more about like pro gamers than she knew about game developers. And that's one of the many reasons I love her is, you know, when I first, you know, we did long distance for 19 weekends. And I was in my condo and I took her downstairs and, you know, I unlocked my Lamborghini and she goes, "That's cute. What's that?" Right. And it's like one of those things, you know, she was raised in a really hardworking lower middle class family. And, you know, I marry the kind of person that's not at Saks buying Jimmy Choos every week. You know, she's like, "Can I get some new Doc Martens?" I'm like, "Yeah, you can, love." And so they interviewed her and asked her about, you know, women in video games and women in tech in general. And the truth of the matter is, you know, I was responsible for hiring at Epic for many years, and 9 times out of 10, it was, I'm pretty sure, straight white male that would come through. And the thing is, you know, we as a society, especially in America, we discourage, you know, women from an early age from getting into tech. You know, boys get shirts like, I'm going to kick butt, you know, and girls get shirts like, let's go shopping, right? And, you know, it's the same thing when like pink Lego came out, right? And it's like, dude, like the old Lego ads showed like a adorable young woman, you know, like with just multicolored Lego building whatever she wanted to, right? By the way, it's Lego, not Legos. Anybody says Legos gets stabbed in the dick. I hate that. It's like locust. It's like there's no locusts. It's just locust. And that's the thing is, you know, they're you know, my wife doesn't do a lot of interviews. She's a little bit shy on camera, which is why I'm so proud of her for Twitch streaming. And you know, because I married her, so I'm partial, but I think she's adorable, sweet, beautiful inside and out. And you know, to put her on national television, you know, of course, she had to spend all the time getting all made up and shit. But you know, pointing out why women, you know, aren't attracted to this field, and you know, the inherent kind of frat bro culture of tech that can kind of bleed into studios if you're not careful. And I even saw a little bit of that at Boss Key. I try to make Boss Key a diverse studio, you know, not just, you know, straight white dudes. And I remember being in a meeting, and, you know, Renee, you know, the designer I mentioned, had something to say and an idea. And one of the dudes immediately just like stepped over her and like, you know, I was like, hey, not to like white knight or some shit like that. But I'm like, let Renee get her fucking point out, dude. You know, and like we as dudes tend to like intrinsically be like, oh, I'm gonna blah, 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 I'm the right one, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, man, you know, maybe, you know, never forget that all wars are started by men. So call me a soy boy if you want, motherfuckers. I don't give a shit.
Not on this platform, they won't.
That's another TED Talk.
You covered a lot of that in your book. I remember multiple mentions of like, here's a moment where we actually had, you know, a womanly voice in the studio, and then it was abruptly kind of crushed out of existence due to unfortunate circumstances or whatever. And I found it really interesting that like you kind of saw the groupthink effect of like, you knew this was happening, but also like no one was going to change it. And then I believe you mentioned, I forget her name, during one of your, maybe there was a scenario where like you were basically asked about women in gaming when you had a woman in your company like right there to talk to, and then you had to, you know, make up an answer, and you were like, this isn't the thing I have the authority on, but I was demanded to answer anyway. And then she was interviewed and gave her own answer, and you were just like, yeah, and that's, you know, what should have been heard in the first place, but instead they look to us. And that's the core of the problem, is like, why ask you, like, you know, well, why are you pointing at the men to ask about the problem with women? And this
is like, I don't know what the term is, systemic, endemic in society in general. It's like, you know, we live in a big stupid McMansion, right?
Right.
And Lauren's 35, but she still looks like she's 22. And so like, you know, like some maintenance guys will come to the front door, and the first thing they say is, are your parents home?
Oh my God.
And she's like, it's my house, motherfucker. And the second thing they say is, well, can I talk to the man of the house? And she's like, I can handle it. What's going on? Right.
Yeah.
And so there's that whole like, oh, okay, little lady, you know, that, you know, and, you know, men need to realize that women are tougher than we will ever know. You know, like you try farting out a watermelon through your vagina, right? Like, you know, dealing with pregnancy and menstruation and all the shit that women have to deal with, you know. And it's the same thing, you know, when I go to a bar with my wife, you know, and sometimes I'll go to the bathroom, and she'll come back. She's like, somebody just grabbed my ass. Like, and, you know, I actually had something like that happen recently to me. You know, I fucking love gay bars. I think they're a blast. Like, you never see like people getting in fist fights and everything like that. And if I get hit on, I'm flattered as hell, because it's a stereotype, but gay dudes usually have pretty good taste.
If you like a good gay bar, next time you're in Philly, check out Woody's.
Dude. So yeah, so some random dude was kind of flirting with me. I'm like, oh, thanks, man, but I'm straight and happily married. And then he grabbed my ass twice. He was hammered, right? But I'm like, dude, okay, thank you. I do have a nice butt, but I feel fucking violated. But one of my favorite songs, by the way, on karaoke to do is Electric Six's Gay Bar.
Absolutely.
I want to take you to a gay bar.
I was trying to get you to do McDonald's the other day. You were like, oh, I don't have a set list. I'm like, oh, okay, now he's got to do McDonald's.
What is that one?
McDonald's is talking about the hardship of working the late night shift at a McDonald's. And it is Electric Six. Like,
oh no shit. All right,
yeah.
I'm gonna have to look that one up.
It's got a fire chorus. Like you will absolutely get you can get. It's got plenty of room for like a crowd chant. It's like, my people need a place to go.
All right, I'm gonna look it up. The thing is you know, karaoke is a fucking art form, and it's one of my new addictions. You know, again, sitting there at the beer garden on Monday nights, right, and people are buying pretzels, they're buying beer, they're buying liquor, and I'm sitting here looking around the room saying, I love all of you because you're essentially paying me to sing mediocre.
The drunker they get, the better you sound.
Well, the thing about exactly, the thing about karaoke is everybody's rooting for you. Right?
That's right.
And like, so last Monday when it was actually Halloween, Lauren rolls up in her Peacemaker outfit with the big stupid helmet. I roll up as Eagly, right? And we wound up doing a Wigwam's Do You Want to Taste It?
Yes. Yes.
I see a move extreme, and she's doing the dance and shit. Like,
perfect.
She's got like backup dancers, and she wound up off sync. I wound up fucking up, but it wound up going over rather well. And the thing about karaoke is you have to read the crowd, right? And like, you know, sometimes like if it's only like, you know, 10 people, you know, like whenever I walk into a bar and it's packed, like cat's meow, Lauren's like, oh my God. I'm like, challenge accepted.
Nah.
And so what I'll do is
the best nights.
Exactly. And so what I'll do is, you know, if it's predominantly like fratty sorority kind of crowd, the Killers, you know, Mr. Brightside. There was this dude who rolled up at karaoke one time, and he opened with Mr. Brightside. I'm like, you never open with Mr. Brightside. It's like with Clerks, where they're like, you never go ass to mouth. And it's like, dude, Mr. Brightside's like, you know, like 3 hours in of karaoke. Like, you got to make sure people are good and like boozy, right? The other one is Carrie Underwood's Before He Cheats. That always gets the white girls going. And then, you know, Baby Got Back, which is surprisingly hard. And then I can do Young MC's Bust a Move nearly verbatim. And so it's one of those things that if it's a gay bar, you know, show tunes, as cliche as it is, are always a hit. You could do It's Raining Men, but that might be seen as pandering. It's a predominantly African American bar. You could do some hip hop. Not a saying all African Americans love hip hop, but you don't get to say the word. It's not that hard to just say brother as opposed to the N word, you know. And you have to remember, you're talking to a guy who took his wife and his sister-in-law on a Kesha cruise a few years ago, like, which was like the gayest thing imaginable. They had like rainbow night and stuff, right?
Kesha cruise.
Yep.
Is this like the celebrity thing where like they they have their own? Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Big Frida was on it. Big Frida's awesome. Ninth Ward Bounce, I think it's called. Anyway, so they had karaoke night, and one of the karaoke nights was show tune karaoke night. And I get there like, you know, about 20 minutes early, and there's a line out the fucking door, right? And they open the door, and it's like fucking Black Friday, but like LGBTQ, right? I'm like elbowing like bears and twinks and otters out of the fucking way. I'm like, I get there, and they didn't have the song I wanted to do from Rent, right? So I wound up doing a song from Dear Evan Hansen, which again is the musical that means the world to me. I'm going to go see it on Sunday. I'm actually going to cosplay as Evan Hansen. And I basically cried the entire time because the show means that much to me. And I wound up doing a song from that because that show means the world to me, because when my niece was 15 and going through a rough patch, being picked on by, you know, the mean girls in her school, you know, my studio was crumbling and I had to put down my Australian Shepherd. You know, there's a line in it, when you're broken on the ground, you will be found. And her and I, it's the whole, you know, thing people say about like rescue dogs. Like, I don't know if I saved him or if he saved me. I don't know if, you know, I saved my niece or if she saved me, but she was there for me during that time period. And I love Maya. She's the best. And, you know, I helped facilitate her going to a school for the arts for a few weeks in New York City recently. And I will do everything in my power to make sure that kid becomes a Broadway star. A lot of tangents today, guys.
Yep.
But hey, video games.
Yeah.
Listen, like the whole. Listen, if you came on here and only talked about Gears of War, I'm sure people would like it, but also not the point.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'd imagine, you know, when you have people on, you want to just kind of, you know, get to know them a little bit. By the way, I still have a Jackrabbit 2 sticker here.
Oh, hell yeah.
I was hoping that you would go on tangents, because that was the thing that I loved the most about you. The thing I was referring to at the top of the show. We're watching you on Giant Bomb in the porn studio. You just went. You're just going.
I believe that whenever possible, make your life like a movie, right? And for my wife and I just celebrated 10 years of marriage. We had a vow renewal ceremony, I was a blubbering bitch because I'm the crier in the relationship, right? Like it goes back to that Jimmy V speech and everything like that. But the thing is I believe your heart is a sponge. If you don't cry once in a while, it'll dry up. I was talking to my brother literally yesterday about this. Like the only time I ever saw my father cry was when he was burying our family cat, right? And to renew the vows and realizing that relationships and marriage in particular, it's like a garden. You got to tend to it, and if you don't, it'll wither. And there's times where my wife would be like, hey, do you want to do ABC or XYZ? And there's times I just don't feel like it, and I'm like, you know what, this is one of those scenes in the movie where it's like the fork where the couple starts to drift a little bit, and I just like, you know what, I will put up the Christmas tree with you, I will put out the stupid Halloween decorations, I will carve a pumpkin with you, all those dumb little things, as opposed to just watching a show or a movie or playing a video game or sitting in a pub reading a book. And it's you have to really kind of and keep your shit together too, mentally and physically, right? And just find that this person is your partner in crime, and you'll always find other people attractive or compelling and interesting, and I've learned over the years, there's women that I'll find attractive, like when we're watching, like there's a show called Ginny in Georgia. My friend Scott Porter's on it. He plays the mayor. It's a Netflix show, right? And the main woman on it's this blonde woman named Brienne Howley, and the camera absolutely fucking loves her. She's stunning. And so I learned that, like, you can't just be like, oh my god, she's so hot, I want to fuck her. You have to be like, hey hon, wow, the camera really likes her. She's quite fetching. And I've learned the same thing about women in public. Like, don't compliment them like you're trying to fuck them. Just be sincere and be like, I love your pink hair. It looks so cool. Or those shoes are awesome. Like, and I really realized what you do is you have to compliment women like you're a gay dude, right? Like, oh my god, your eyelashes look wonderful, 3D, right? And it's one of those things that the other thing is, like, being 47, if I encounter a charming, lovely young woman in her 20s when we're out, I'm like, my new term is like, I just want to put her in my pocket. Because like we have a bunch of like awesome, lovely young servers at the beer garden that are so sweet and kind, and they work their butts off for us. And there's this one named Leah, and she's got these big old glasses, and she looks like a Scott Pilgrim character. And every time I show up for karaoke, I'm always like, okay, what did you? Because we started bonding over horror movies. I'm like, have you seen It Follows? And she's like, no. I'm like, watch it. Next week I come back, she's like, oh my god, that was awesome. And like, like I love like comparing notes with people. Right, just like pop culture references.
Literally just watched It Follows because it was mentioned on Corridor Digital the other day.
That is one of the best horror movies in the last 10 to 15 years. What was your favorite ghost, by the way? I love the giant. I love the giant.
No, that's a loaded question. I kind of don't want to spoil it because there's a good amount of it that was spoiled in the Corridor Digital segment.
You know who the ghost? You know who the final ghost was, right?
No.
Okay, if you haven't seen the movie, mute for a second. It was her. It was her father. Because they have that long zooming shot of the Polaroid of her and her dad at the beginning, right, with the creepy music in the background, and so she's like, that's why she was in such a state of disbelief. Like, no, because the kid, the dude who passes the ghost STD onto her, it's just the dumbest idea, but it works. He tells her it can look like somebody it could look like a random person, but regardless, it's going to keep coming for you. Okay. And the music in that, I'm getting goosebumps like saying that. The music and everything in it like was just utterly magical, and like you didn't even know what era it took place in, because it took place in like this downtrodden Detroit. And they have that one girl who has the little like e-reader that looks like a clamshell, and we're all like, is this like now or is this like in the past? I don't know. And that ambiguity added to it like so much. And the main girl looked just like Brittany Murphy to me. And for me, it's one of my favorite horror movies. But I love good scares. I go back and forth on jump scares. Like I think like an earned jump scare is worth it. Like the scene in Insidious, where the Darth Maul looking demon, Lynn Shy's like he's in the room, he's here, and they catch Patrick, what's his name, and then the demon's right behind him. Like that was brilliant, right? And so the same thing with the one in Signs, where I think it was Joaquin Phoenix. I think it was like watching the TV, and it was like the video of the birthday party in Mexico, and then just the alien does the whole like Bigfoot thing and just walks by, and then he just, holy shit, like like those are worth it. But there's so many franchises that are just built on, you know it's coming because they lowered the audio, they lower it, boom, stinger, giant thing coming in your face, and it's like, if it's earned, I respect it, I appreciate it. Like, James Wan as a director, I've hung out with him a couple times. He's brilliant, and for him to be able to do The Conjuring and Insidious and Saw, and then to also do the Fast and the Furious franchise and everything in between, like, think about
what a pivot,
right? You just think about this guy's skill set, right? And he's so talented. So it's actually a fun fact. Here's a quick anecdote.
Hey, he's doing Aquaman now, isn't he?
Yeah. Remember when Aquaman was a joke on Entourage? and so I was at
a big battle against the entire nerd culture to make Aquaman cool.
He talks to fish. That's his power. So the thing is, the fun anecdote is, so I was at Comic-Con years ago with James Wan on a panel, right? And Jenna Dewan was there, and I got a photo with her, right? She was sweet and lovely. And years later, where my sister-in-law, who I told, don't just live in Mandeville. You're creative. You're brilliant. You're smart. Like, she winds up going to LA. She winds up, actually, let me back up for a second. She winds up on a set doing some work for a friend of mine, Lonnie, who owns Zoic Studios in Culver City, and he directs a bunch of like American Horror Story. He directed some episodes of Banshee, and they were filming a pilot in New Orleans. My sister-in-law meets and falls in love with this guy named Steve Kazee, right? Steve Kazee has won a Tony and an Emmy for his show called Once that was on Broadway, right? I got an Emmy, a Tony, and I can't remember the other award, right? Anyways, award-winning guy, right? Really great, charismatic dude. If you've ever seen the show Shameless, he was the guy who was dating Fiona for a while that did the "Fuck You Fiona" song. And he was cool. We took him to Disneyland once, etc. And so she eventually moves to LA, is hanging out with him. She goes to my Big Dumb Yacht Party that I would throw every year at Comic-Con with Justin Roiland from Rick and Morty. She meets Ryan Ridley, who is one of the main writers, voice actors, producers of Rick and Morty. They hit it off. My sister-in-law dumps Steve Kazee and then winds up with Ryan Ridley. They've been together for years now at this point. Ryan wins an Emmy for Rick and Morty, and then Steve Kazee moves on and winds up marrying and having a kid with Jenna Dewan. So it's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon at this fucking point. But I will be doing Comic-Con this year. It feels a little weird, with all the COVID stuff, but it's one of those things like, Justin Roiland and Alex Hirsch and Alex from Gravity Falls, we would throw this legendary party, which we would call, again, the Big Dumb Yacht Party. And you never knew who would show up, right? Like, it would be, Weird Al came one year. One time I'm getting drunk with the cast of Game of Thrones, and, Riley Reid shows up one time. That's a whole other story. I'm assuming you guys know who she is.
Needs no introduction. Let's get her on the show.
Yeah, well, the thing is, we're at the boat party because she was friends with Abby Maley, who is Justin's now ex-fiance, and Abby's gone in to do XXX stuff, and she's like, "If you see my new video," I'm like, okay, like if you know somebody who's in porn from the get-go, it's like, okay, cool, but then you see them transition, you're like, this is kind of odd. And her whole shtick is,
she's content. It's just content, man. It's gonna be all right.
It is, man. And that's the thing is, like it's really, really easy to judge, porn stars or OnlyFans people until you're friends with some of them, and you're like, dude, whatever pays the fucking bills, right? Yeah. And so, Abby and Justin roll up with Riley Reid, and she shakes my hand. She says, I'm so and so. I don't want to put out her real name, but you know me by my stage name, Riley Reid. And she's like all of this tall, right? And I have a hypothesis that in porn, they cast girls that are like this tall to make the dudes' dicks look bigger. It's kind of like in Hollywood. In old sets, they make like the doors like smaller so the dudes look bigger coming out of it.
I haven't finished the book. Is there a chapter about this?
not that'll be in the next book. So I shake your hand, and if you ever meet a porn star whose work you've enjoyed, the second it clicks, you see every filthy thing you've ever seen this person do flashes before your eyes, and I'm like, oh yeah, I love your work.
It's the Mesmer guy from The Boys. When he grabs his hand, it's that exact scene in the bathroom. He's like, oh.
So then, my wife Lauren pulls me aside. She's like, how do you know her? I'm like, we'll talk. Because my wife doesn't give a shit. I literally have my Steam Deck. I have like a Stream Deck. I have like a Pornhub button, right? Like I watch everything. I don't give a fuck. we send each other links and shit, right? And so somebody on Twitter is like trying to out me. Like that's the other thing, by the way, is like friends with Jess Negri, you know, the famous cosplayer.
Yep.
And on her Instagram, I don't know if you've noticed, every time she posts a photo of her butt, I'm like, butt! And then people like try and tag my wife. Like,
oh my God.
I'm like, dude, you know, like Jessica comes to our boat party, and it's a tradition every time we do the boat party that we get a photo in the photo booth of Jessica grabbing my wife's tits, right? Like fuck off, dude, right?
Yeah.
Like people are so.
I think the people that are following you aren't like putting two and two together and understanding that it's like this is a social media platform where you get to interact with your friends on this platform. You just get to see me doing it, you know.
Yeah.
Like,
and then Elon Musk is going to ruin everything because I used to love him. Like I met him at a Game of Thrones premiere a while back, and I was like, I tweeted, I just met Elon Musk, I'm shaking. And then as time went on, I'm like, no, you're just you're fucking Lex Luthor at this point, dude. Like you're a fucking asshole. So. But he still has so many fucking fanboys. But one of the stories I've been telling, I'd love to share with you guys about Game of Thrones if you'll hear me.
Sure.
And
I'm sure the back. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I'm sure this is gonna lead to how.
Yeah.
This back quote on here.
So yeah, on the back of the book, I have quotes from Tom Bissell, who wrote the book about the movie The Room. He did it was called The Disaster Artist. He wrote a book about the video game industry called Extra Lives. Jason Schreier, again, who did Press Reset and Blood, Sweat, and Pixels. Brian O'Malley, who created Scott Pilgrim and Seconds and Snot Girl, which is also really good. Dan Weiss, the co-creator of Game of Thrones, who's a friend of mine. And then, of course, I ended up with a quote from MC Ice-T. And so the thing is, I met David and Dan from Game of Thrones years ago through my agent when I was repped by a creative artists agency. I was in Los Angeles, and we had a dinner at the House of Blues on Sunset. Dan Aykroyd pokes his head in. He's like, hey, I hope you guys have a good night and all that. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? And, we kept in touch over the years. And so a few years ago, sorry, burping up my breakfast. A few years ago, we wound up going to one of the season premieres where the Three-Eyed Raven was like one of the main themes. And that one was in Los Angeles, right? And, there was like ravens on the tables, and like at the end of the night, like little old ladies were like stealing them. Lauren's like, fuck that, I'm grabbing a raven. And so it's literally like right over there. And so the final season premiere is coming up, right? So I sheepishly emailed them. I'm like, hey guys, can we come? And they're like, yeah, no, we'll save you a couple slots. So we go up to back to Radio City Music Hall. They have an organ, and the guy plays the Game of Thrones theme. The curtain opens, and they're like, ladies and gentlemen, the cast of Game of Thrones. There's 90% of them all on stage, right? So we go to the after party. We're like hanging out with the Mountain and shit. John Oliver's there. We get a photo with him and everything like that. And I'm like, okay,
my favorite
cool.
Game of Thrones character.
Yeah, no, he's great. And but then the after party was at the Mandarin Oriental Hotel nearby, right? So there was like a speakeasy there, and I became friends with Sir Davos, Liam Cunningham, through my Big Dumb Yacht Party and whatnot, because his daughter studied game design in Dublin underneath John and Brenda Romero. Small fucking world. And so then we're at the second after party. Liam Cunningham goes upstairs and he changes out of his suit, and he's wearing like a t-shirt and sweatpants. And Kit Harington, Jon Snow, looks at him and goes, "You look like a fucking homeless man, lad." And so then I'm catching up with him, like, oh, how's your daughter Ellen doing? And he's like, oh, she's got an app now. She's making games. And, because Ellen was at the game developer conference at one point. I was introducing her to everybody because she's a total sweetheart. And, again, more women in tech, please. And I see Tyrion Lannister, Peter Dinklage, like kind of running around, right? I'm like, hey, by the way, Sophie Turner, she's still wearing her lovely outfit, but she has her hotel slippers on. She has a huge handful of French fries and does like a shot of tequila with like Joe Jonas by her. And so then I'm like, hey, I want to meet Peter Dinklage. And Liam's like, Peter, come here. And Peter's, obviously a small dude. And, he takes maybe like 2 drinks and he's a little tipsy. And he turns around and he's like, what? And he grabs well, first off, I shake his hand. I was like, very nice to meet you. Love your work. He grabs Liam's left nipple and starts giving him a fucking titty twister. I grab Liam's right nipple and start giving him a titty twister. So myself and Tyrion Lannister are giving Sir Davos a titty twister right in next to Jon Snow, and Daenerys Targaryen. Emilia Clarke is like right over there looking over like, what the fuck is going on right now? And then after that, I get another message from Dan Weiss like, hey, we're having an after party in our suite. Want to come up? And so we wound up drinking with the cast of Game of Thrones until 4 a.m. And Joffrey, the actor who plays him, is a really nice kid. So that was one of the many stories that I have, because when I see Sophie Turner now, like she'd had a couple, I mean, she had every right to celebrate. I was like, Sophie, good to see you. You came to my boat party at Comic-Con. She goes, the one with the monkey, because we hired Crystal the monkey from The Hangover to come to the party, because we hired her prior to come to our engagement or our rehearsal dinner, because we got married at the San Diego Safari Park. And now, like, same thing with Natalie Emanuel. Like, when I see Natalie Emanuel, Missandei, Daenerys' translator, when I see Sophie Turner and I see Missandei, they kiss me on the cheek, and I can fucking take that one with me. I'll take that win as the pimply-faced 15-year-old that didn't know how to talk to girls.
Awesome.
I don't know how we follow that one up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So we're at the Comic-Con party, and Riley Reid is wearing a very short. She's wearing a very short skirt, and clearly no underwear. I mean, we've all seen it, but it's like, okay, she's like sitting in chairs, like letting it all hang out, and like, all right, this just got interesting. And it's one of those things that when I would throw that party with Justin, I don't know if we're going to do it this year. We'll see. It's not cheap. It's not just celebrities, right? It's interesting people. It's cosplayers. It's pro gamers. It's just cool people. Like, I invited Alana Pierce to it before she became the like, that girl farts on social media and gets 8 billion likes. I mean, she's a good friend. She's smart. She's writing at Sony Santa Monica. She's obviously beautiful in the Australian
God of War
accent.
Ragnarok out next week. Everybody.
Yeah, 95% aggregate. Shout out to Cory Barlog. And it's one of those AAA games that I don't want to play, because I'm sure it's fantastic, but all I'm going to see is the dollars on the screen. That was the problem with, like when I was at Epic, like I never saw the behind the scenes of, the numbers. I knew what I was making. I didn't know what somebody else was making. I didn't know like what we had in the coffers and things like that. But when it came down to Boss Key, I would look at that spreadsheet with my former COO, Ardian, and I would be like, okay, tick, 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 every month, boom, boom, boom. And you just see the coffers just drain. And it's basically like, 24, where there's like the clock on the screen, right? And, we hire somebody and you want to take care of your employees. You want to, have good healthcare and insurance and things like that. But, you want them to have a good salary so they can feed their families. But you still have that in the back of your head, tick, tick, ticking away. And then, I'm supposed to be creative. Like, for me, those two things were like, it's like drinking orange juice after you brush your teeth. There are two things that it was not a chocolate and peanut butter situation, to retro quote myself, right? And that's the beauty of where I'm at right now, is that, I'm making new IP. And, could it be a game or a Netflix series or a toy line? Sure. Who knows where it's going to go? But at the end of the day, I'm funding it myself. The restaurants are very much in the black. We're comfortable fiscally, and now I have complete and total creative control, working with a partner like Alex DeCampi. And that's the thing I realized, like, I don't like creating in a vacuum, right? Like, I need somebody to bounce ideas off of. And, somebody like Alex, I'll suggest something. She's like, oh, then we could do this, that, and the other. And, oh, there's these rat characters. And she's like, oh, let's make a scene where they're trying to steal a wheel of cheese, like a Mission Impossible segment or something like that, on like, ropes and things like that. I'm like, oh, that's great. Let's go with that. Right. And, she just, again, badass writer. She lives in Hell's Kitchen in Manhattan. And, I got to have dinner with her a while back when I went up to binge on Broadway. And it's just, she's just very cerebral, no bullshit, total badass. And that's the thing, is whenever I go to New York now, that's actually one of my favorite anecdotes, is back when I was single and trying to roll on these Southern girls. I remember talking to this one girl at a bar, and she's like, I don't make it out to the big city that often. I'm like, yeah, I only make it up to New York City like 2 or 3 times a year. She's like, I'm talking about Raleigh. And I'm like, oh God, we're not in Kansas. We're not in Kansas anymore. And that's the thing, is, whenever I go, we would usually stay in Union Square, because it's kind of centrally located, right? And there used to be a great little spot called Coffee Shop up there, which unfortunately closed. But now, New York to me is food and Broadway, right? And I'll never understand people that go to Manhattan and they go to Olive Garden. I'm like, Little Italy is like a 10-minute cab ride that way, you fucking idiots. And so I went up there like when COVID was starting to subside, and we still had to wear the masks and everything. But went and saw Hadestown, went and saw Dear Evan Hansen again, went and saw Six, went and saw Little Shop of Horrors. Six, if you're not familiar with it, is fucking a banger of a show. It's a short show. It's only like 90 minutes, but it's basically the story of Henry VIII's 6 wives. But it feels like a big Spice Girls concert by way of a history lesson. Like the music, as the kids say, slaps. It's fucking awesome. And the other thing is, creatively, by the way, my wife's making her own comic book about gargoyles. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, hell yeah.
Lost my
But yeah, we're at the point where, you know, like, I feel like life, you know, up to this point has been one big RPG where I just was grinding and grinding and grinding. And now I feel like the world has finally become fully open world. And now I can work on what I want to. I can, you know, jump between projects. And now that the book's out of the way, you know, I can focus on the next. You know, I have another IP that I'm noodling on about, you know, I've mentioned this in other podcasts, you know, the idea of, you know, a giant crawfish kaiju attacking New Orleans, right? Like, nobody's done that yet, you know, and who doesn't love kaiju, right? And I say this as somebody that went to the movie premiere of Pacific Rim, got to meet Charlie Day and saw Guillermo del Toro get serenaded by a mariachi band.
I mean, I think we need more Pacific Rim, specifically from Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah.
I like that second movie though, but
it was all right. It was all right. The thing is, I used to be buddies with the guy who was the owner and CEO of Legendary Pictures, because they were interested in possibly investing in Epic at one point, blah, 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 blah. And that was the first time I flew private. And he had his own jet, and it's just like, you're just ruined. It's just like the greatest thing on the fucking planet. But so we go to LA for the Pacific Rim premiere, and like the way that they do it, you know, the Dolby Theater, right, is they have all those stanchions to block, you know, people off. And, you know, when I go to these things, I don't dress up often, but like I said earlier, you know, like I put on a really expensive, nice suit. I get Lauren in like an Hervé Leger dress. You know, we hire the stylist that did her at her wedding. These guys, this couple that's been together forever. These dudes are freaking great. And they just like do her all up and everything like that. And she's shy, right? So we come around the corner and there's all these people assuming we're somebody, right? And they're like taking photos, and she squeezes my hand. She's like, "Oh my God!" And I'm like, "Just act like you belong here." I have like my sunglasses on. We're like walking in, like, "That's right. We're kind of a big deal, right?" And then we get in there, and my wife, I think it was at the Pacific Rim one. My wife loves Kristen Bell, to the point where there was a charity thing where you could donate a little bit of money and Kristen Bell would do your voicemail for you. And Lauren, I wrote it up for Lauren. It's like, you know, if you called Lauren right now and you didn't get, you know, you went to voicemail, be like, "Hi, this is Kristen Bell. Lauren can't come to the phone right now because we're drinking mimosas and playing video games. Don't bother leaving a message because this isn't 1998. Thanks, okay, bye." Right. And the producer of it like mentioned, like, here's your file. And by the way, between us, she said that was her favorite one that she got to record. But we're sitting there, you know, at the premiere, and Kristen Bell walks in with Dax Shepard. Dax is wearing like a fucked up old like dirty tank top, not giving a shit. And they couldn't find their seat. And Lauren's like, "What's up with that girl?" And like 30 seconds later, she's like, "Oh shit, that's Kristen Bell. Oh my God." And she didn't get to meet her that night. But it's one of those things, like, you know, when I was, again, friends with the guy from Legendary, who's part owner of the Steelers. I was at his house in Calabasas at one point, and this Samoan looking dude who's about my height but was built like a brick shithouse is hanging out. And he had his hair up in a bun. I was like, "Hi, I'm Cliff." He's like, "Hey, I'm Troy." I'm like, "What do you do, Troy?" And he's like, I play. He
stars in shampoo commercials.
Seriously. So then he had to head out, and he gave us like a big old hug. He's really nice. He had a really like soft kind way about him, right? And Thomas was like, "You didn't know who that was?" I was like, "No." He's like, "He probably loved that." But anyway, so like I got to go to the premiere of The Hangover. Right. And I was like, I had, you know, I didn't have anybody to bring with me. I wasn't with Lauren yet. And so I was like, who am I going to bring? So I've been friends with Jade Raymond for years. Right. And Jade's amazing. She's brilliant, talented, obviously lovely. And so I'm like, I'm going to bring Jade. And so I'm bringing Jade Raymond to the Hangover premiere. And we wound up seated next to Meadow Soprano. I can't remember the actress's name, Jamie something. And the guy who plays Turtle on Entourage. And then like I'm like, "Yeah, she made Assassin's Creed. I made Gears of War." And they're like, "Oh, look at this. You're sitting right next to Video Game Royalty." And it's one of those many moments where, you know, when they did the CBS Saturday morning special, they called me the Forrest Gump of video games. And I'm like, okay.
Oh,
wow.
This is like Lego Batman. I have questions. See, that was a callback.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, does that mean I'm slow? Or that I generally tend to stumble into these interesting situations? So I think it's the latter.
Yeah.
You know, I've had my share of shenanigans in my life.
See, they were saying you run real good and you play ping pong great. That's what they were saying.
And you know, Jenny was the villain in that film, for the record. All right, lads, what else you got? I gotta get moving on.
I was actually gonna say we probably need to wrap this up because I think we're 30 minutes over.
Yeah.
Oh shit! Sorry.
No, don't apologize.
Stories about porn stars and movie stars and game designers.
You should probably start a podcast because I'm pretty sure you could put out a couple episodes just going off the top of your head like that. Like,
yeah, I mean, I left out the story where we were at a Irish pub at Comic-Con and Riley Reid and Abby Maley vanished into the bathroom with my wife and didn't come out for 20
hold on. Why don't you save it and then you can come back and do another episode with us?
They didn't come out for 20 minutes, and the next day I heard what happened. So that's a whole other story. So I'll leave it at that.
Or it'll be in your next book, actually.
Yeah,
exactly.
Speaking of which,
again, when possible, live your life like a movie.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, book. Control Freak out now. You can get it. It's on Amazon. You can get this like same day. Yeah. Actually,
it's got like a photo section in it and stuff.
Yeah.
And if you don't like to read, there is a audio version of it.
Yeah. Final thoughts is we got this great guy. I can't remember his name off the top of my head to do the audiobook. And you know, Mark Rain himself texted me. He's like, "You have to do the audiobook yourself." And I'm like, dude, I cry about 6 or 7 times every time rereading this. Like, I've already relived my highs, my lows of my lows. Like, I'm gonna let somebody else do it. And
Kurt Kanazawa.
Yeah, Kurt Kanazawa, and he does a great job with it. And so, you know, every night, you know, after my wife and I watch a movie, or you know, like again, burning through a Cabinet of Curiosities, Guillermo del Toro's cool new series, you know, we sit in the kitchen and we're burning through it, and it's just really surreal to hear your life through somebody else's voice, and he does a great job with it. So, you know, whether you're an auditory learner or a visual learner, I hope you'll check it out, because it's a story of an industry growing up with the story of a young man growing up and finding true love.
And in about 5 years, you'll see Brad Pitt playing Cliff, and
fingers crossed.
Yeah, who do you want to play? Let's close on that. Who do you want to play you?
Ansel Elgort.
In 5 years. In 5 years.
Yeah. I think Ansel Elgort would be great. He's had some accusations of some inappropriate behavior, but I just think he's a talented actor, and I think he's a sexy beast.
You don't want to close the loop and have Dave Bautista play you instead of Marcus Phoenix?
I really, in hindsight, I think he would make a great Marcus Phoenix. So.
I mean, he did that. He did that whole voice and face replacement for Gears 5,
right?
Which was fantastic. But like, hey, anyway,
yeah. Fingers crossed.
I want to see him play you though.
Yeah,
I think he can pull it off.
He played me in like 2007 when I was miserable in my relationship and actively working out like a fiend. So he's great.
Oh my gosh!
Well, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Where can we find you on the internet? What do you got coming up that you want to plug right now besides this, or where can we get you?
My Instagram is DudeHugeTank, I believe. Hang on, let me double check it. You know, I've learned to actually like stop staring at the amount of followers you have, because if you obsess about that stuff, you'll go insane. Yeah, I'm DudeHugeTank on Instagram. I'm on TikTok, but I'm still working through what the name's going to be. It's hopefully just going to be Dude Huge or CliffyB. And then on Twitter, I'm the real CliffyB. And you know, as you guys mentioned, you know, I read, you know, all my replies. You know, it's got something to do on the toilet when you're taking a shit. You know, and for some reason.
If it's not Marvel Snap, it's on Twitter.
Well, the best Instagram account out there is called Butt Snorkeler 2020, and it's just Instagram butts, just beautiful female butts, just over and over again. And for some reason, it always pops up when I'm on the toilet taking a shit. I have no idea. And I have the cognitive dissonance of like being like, man, that's a really nice butt. It'd be great to stick my face in it while I'm taking a shit. Being like, you know what comes out of that, but I'm still a dude, I guess. At the end of the day. On that note, thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thanks. What a way to end.
Thanks so much, man.
Thank you for watching.
Hit me up with the link so I can plug it on social, guys.
Will do.
All right. Absolutely. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.